Chelsea, there it is. Oh no. Okay, now there we go. We're working on getting our audio visual working so that there'll be video to be able to live stream better, and we're just waiting for Linda to get back from vacation to hopefully get that sorted for you. So I'm very excited about that. So in the meantime, unfortunately, you just get to listen to me. Um, so welcome. We actually have somebody new on the call today. Welcome, Sandy, to Keller Williams. We're thrilled to have you. So everybody say hi to Sandy. She's a new agent with us in the Valley. So the people in the room say hi. It's hard for you to hear because I didn't walk over with the mic. And so what we're going to talk about today is one of the challenges that I see on a fairly regular basis is agents in a position where they're really good at a part of their business. They're really good at talking about houses, or maybe they're really good at getting an appointment, but they're really not great at getting the person to sign on the dotted line. Maybe they can get the appointment, but they can't get the commitment from them to actually start working with you. Put your sign on the lawn, for lack of a better word, or get a partner to agree to work with you. And so what happens is people, instead of focusing necessarily on when you're building your business plan on looking at trying to get more appointments, what we want to do is change your conversion rate so that whenever you are meeting people, you get a higher yield from every appointment that you get. So it's not an instant thing. This is a work in progress, so I need to be very clear about this. This is not a magic pill that tomorrow you're going to go out and I mean, that would be great. I'd love for people to call me and tell me that, you know, they took my class and then, you know, their next 4 appointments were 100%. That would be phenomenal. However, my expectations might be a little bit more realistic. This is like you're basically trying to form new habits because it's going to require you to change, in some cases, your language. It's going to require you to, in some cases, change your body language. It might require you to change how you approach different people in different circumstances. And it's going to have to be something that is conscious, that is at the forefront of your mind. It's like kind of like watching what you eat, in that you have to continually think about it, because once you stop, we fall back into our old habits, is probably the easiest way that I can explain this. So some people are, I will say, there are some people who are naturally good at closing. And then for most people, it's a learned skill that comes as they go, okay? So, Chelsea, will you let me know if someone types something that I say thank you? So if we're trying to build this skill, I think the first thing we have to look at are what are the situations that we're in where we have to be conscious of how we're closing and that we are actually closing. And I think that's the first piece of this, is sometimes we don't even realize that we're in a situation that is about creating that confirmation of intention. So I'll start with a really simple example, which would be open houses. So lots of people are really great at having phenomenal conversations at open houses. They feel like they've created this phenomenal bond with the person, you know, in the kitchen or in the electrical room. We seem to spend a lot of times in basements because we end the tour and stop there, and I don't know why that happens. I know when I show houses that happens all the time. We stand in the electrical room and I'll go, okay, wait a minute, we can actually go up in the living room and talk. But so that's a really common place where you're trying to create that relationship and create that appointment. Another situation would be that you have a buyer who's contacted you and you're trying to get them to actually sit and do a consultation with you. Another example might be that you've met someone who's thinking about listing their house and you're trying to get into their kitchen. If I can just get into their kitchen, I know I can get, you know, that's a big step to getting the deal closed and getting them closed as a client and hiring you. Then there's the closing from I've done my listing presentation to actually getting them to sign the listing. Then there's working with a buyer and getting the buyer to actually write an offer and get them to that place. Open houses are an example, and getting partners to commit to an ongoing working relationship or a marketing plan or something that you're doing is another sort of aside situation. So to me, those were sort of the 6 most common places where we are in fact closing all the time. And if we can fix like the 3 first ones, then we will change your conversion rate in terms of how your business goes. Is that a fair statement, everybody? Okay, so let's look at some of the solutions. So when we're talking about closing, I think one of the most important aspects to it is actually the language that you use. So what would you say are some of the things from a language perspective that you think could be negatively affecting your ability to close? Anybody have any ideas? Person or online? Nobody has any ideas? Tanya, do you have an idea? Wait. We're going to fix this. This is part of what we're fixing, is the having to run around with the mic.
I think it's when they throw things at you that they want to hear, but you don't have those answers, like whether it's market or area related or house related, or you know what I mean?
Right. So you're concerned that if you can't give them the exact answer they want, that you aren't closing.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, even like prices on houses.
Prices on houses. Okay. So that's one. Anka says being too pushy. Yeah. So sometimes it's what you're not saying as much as what you are saying. Okay. The first thing that I would say when we talk about language is that you want to be talking in continually using a positive tonality in your voice and using words that have a positive aspect to them, because there's a natural attraction that happens when you're speaking to someone, when you're speaking in a positive way and when you're speaking in the affirmative way. So I'll give you an example. So you have a buyer that comes into an open house and they're talking about, what they're doing when they're looking, and maybe you start to change your choice of words to say, so when we sit down and get together to talk about what you might want or need, when we would be out looking, when we work with our buyers, when we are out with our buyers, these are the things that we do. Can you see the power that that would have in a conversation? So what you're starting to do is they're going to start to like agree with you, right? The other one is if you're at a listing appointment, and I know I'm jumping around, but there's kind of no way else for me to do this in my brain, and for those of you that know me will know that that's how my brain works. So let's say, for example, I'm doing a listing appointment, and I'm walking through the house, the person is showing me the house, and they're talking about, I've got so much stuff in this room, and I know I'm going to have to get it out, right? And instead of saying, yeah, you're right, that's something you're going to have to deal with, if you say, you know what, let's not worry about that. When we come back to do your consult with the photographer or whatever, then we'll help you decide what needs to stay and go. When we are back, when we list your house, when we're on the market. So there's a couple of things in that language that I'm using that I think is important. The first thing is that it's inclusive. It's not I, it's not you, it's we. We're instantly creating that relationship. And what we're doing is creating a little bit of a team. And people like to belong to something. The second part of it is I'm talking in the affirmative that this is going to happen, but yet I'm not pushy. Okay? So if you're always talking in that positive expectation with when your house is sold, when we get you an offer, they're worried about where they're going to move. Well, you know what? When we work with our sellers, we have a plan to make sure that you're not homeless, So you're talking about a forward thinking. You're using positive, inclusive, warm, relatable language, but yet you're not shoving it down their throat. So the language we use, so again, the first thing is I do believe you need to remove the word I. from your vocabulary. You're talking to someone in an open house and you talk about, we as a team, or we at KW, or we in the industry, or, whatever, right? There's a power to that. Or even if it's the we in the sense of myself and you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, when we sit down, there's something very powerful. People don't like language that creates barriers, and they don't like language that makes it all about you. They don't care about you at the open house. They're not interested in you. So some are shopping for an agent, but most aren't. So how do you be approachable and yet get your message across that you're trying to convey, right? So the word we is extremely powerful in talking about, successes we've had as an office, and, this is how we like to work. And it doesn't sound as arrogant as I. Do you guys agree with this, not agree with this? So the word we is the first thing. The second piece of your language is speaking, again, and I'm going to say this again and again, is the positive, affirmative, as if this is going to happen. Like it's kind of already decided. Well, obviously I'm here doing your listing appointment, so when we put you on the market, and so when we bring in the photographer, we'll deal with this, and whether you bring in a stager and they'll do that, or as part of our marketing package, we include this, and so for your home, it's going to be really important that we include X. So I'm speaking as if this is kind of already done. When I come back for my second appointment to do your pricing, everybody does it differently, then, we can talk about that at that point if you have that information, and then we will go through this together. We will come up with a plan together that will deal with kids' school and whatever, and locations and buses, and, I'll do that homework so that when I come back, we can figure that out together. So what is happening when I'm using both the word we and I'm using the positive, like affirmative, that this is going to happen? What is happening when I'm doing that? So Marc-Andre says confidence. Anybody online? Nobody? I'm closing. I'm closing. The whole time I'm closing. I could be there for an hour and a half and I'm closing the entire time, and the client does not know I'm doing it. It's very hard to close if you've talked about yourself for an hour and a half and then say, so when would you like me to come back so I can talk about myself more? That's exciting. People love that, right? So the language that you use is very, very, very powerful. The other part of your language is to be question-based. So to say, tell me, can you tell me all of the great things you've done with your home? So you're asking for input. You're engaging the client in that conversation. I'm at an open house. So, tell me, so is this your first open house? Or, obviously you've asked if they're working with someone, and they're not, or else we would be finishing our conversation. And so they're not, or they don't have someone, or they don't like their person, or they're done, or whatever. And so you're asking about, so are you familiar with the area? Are you looking, is this the type of style you're looking for? Like you're asking questions that are strategic and difficult to not answer without being rude. So Canadians really have a hard time being rude to other people. And if you ask a question that's not overly personal, most times they will answer, right? So if you're having that dialogue with that consumer in the house, and you're talking about whatever it is, like oh my gosh, like this is phenomenal, whatever. Oh, I was just in the house down the street and this, and or I know there's an open house down there. Have you considered going there? We're working with buyers in the area. Whatever you're saying, but you're asking them for input. Oh, they've got little kids with you, and you're with them, and you're like, oh, like, is this your only one? Okay, no human is not going to answer about their other children. Oh, great. So and they're like, oh, well, this, and sometimes you'll have a blended family, like, oh, well, this one's mine, and that one's hers, and this is ours, and and so you're like, oh, is that, oh my gosh, like, wow, like you're busy, like, that's, all under, like, I'm guessing what, 6? Oh yeah, now there's a teenager at home, so like people will talk, okay? So when we're talking about language, we're using that positive thing, okay? And I'm going to teach you a trick to create a conversation with any human who even doesn't want to talk to you, okay? And we're going to come back to that one. But the language that I'm using is question-based, and especially, now I don't know if this works in other countries as well as it works here, but I think people are people no matter where you are. But generally speaking, if you ask somebody something like, you're not saying, oh, so welcome to this open house. So what's your gross income per year? Okay, no, they're not going to answer that. But oh, this is and they might see something. They might make a mention of, oh, they have a fenced yard, and you're like, oh, like, are we trying to trap the dogs, or are we trying to trap the kids? Like, so you can have that conversation that's light and engaging. What you're doing is you're answering the questions you need to answer, okay? But again, you're using that very positive, well, when we work with buyers, and when we sit down with our buyers, and when we do our consultation, you might, if let's say they're shopping realtors, and you can say, well, I'm sure you've done a consult with whomever you were interviewing to work with, and they might go, oh, no. So there's ways that you can sort of passively aggressively make yourself sound good at the same time without, doing that, or talking about pricing or things like that. But language is one of the most powerful things you can do. The other piece of your language is your tonality, okay? So I am a fairly frenetic human in the sense that I can be very like, oh, or I can be very calm, and depending on the situation, I'm very good at being a chameleon. That's one thing that I will give myself with respect to who I'm working with. So that is another learned skill, to learn how to mirror. Has anybody ever heard of mirroring the person that you're working with? Yes? Okay, I'm getting some nods. So what we're talking about there is, if you are talking to someone who's speaking quietly and slowly, then you coming in like the Tasmanian devil, all wound up and excited, is going to freak them out, because that's not their personalities, right? So Chelsea, who's in the room right now and has, God love her, has been working with me for almost 10 years. I think we're hitting our 10-year anniversary. She's like a saint. I know you all think that. She's seen me do it, and it kills her every time it happens, because she knows that she knows when I'm in, she'll call it that I'm in mode, because she can tell when I switch to mirror the people that I'm with, because it's not my natural way of speaking. And so slowing your speech down to mirror the people that you're with, or someone who's extremely brief and extremely succinct in their points, is really not going to stand there and listen to you blah, 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 blah for 5 minutes. They don't care. So there's more to the tonality than just your actual voice. So you do want to keep your voice on an even tone. You want to have a very positive lilt to your voice, but you also want to make sure that you are not ending your sentences with a question, unless it's a question, obviously. But, I'd love to get together. You need to bring the other down in your voice, not, oh, I'd really like to get together. Now it sounds like a question. So when you're making a statement, your voice has to go down. Like, I have, for those of you on the phone or on the line, I have my hand in front of me, and it's sort of like making a little swooping motion to go down, like your teacher showing you, go down the hill with your hand. There's a really great course on KW Connect that you can choose to pay for. I think it's $100 a month, and there's 4 lessons, I think, per month for 3 months. I think that's what it is. I might be off a little bit. And it's called The Language of Sales, and it is an entire course on this. And Brenda Kay has taken the course. I've taken the course. It's a phenomenal course that offers you all of these types of practices about how your voice is, and how to shorten your sentences, and what type of language to use. And it's definitely something that is extremely powerful, because I think no matter what you're doing, you're on the phone, you're leaving a voicemail, you're in an open house, you're at a listing appointment, your voice, your language is the most important tool you have. You can have the most beautiful PowerPoint in the world describing your skill base, but if you can't if you can't manage that language with those people, your success rate and your closing rate is going to be affected. So tonality of your voice, speed of your voice is very important. And the aggressiveness of your voice. And I know, being a kind of a loud person that I am, I know it seems weird for me to say it, but for those people that have worked with me closely, they'll have seen me slow it, not only slow it, but become more. I'll give you an example. We had Sellers last year. She may possibly be the sweetest woman I've ever known in my life, other than, of course, my own mother. Chelsea knows who I'm talking about. And her husband was very aggressive and very, to the point and whatever. And you just wanted to hug her every time you saw her. Like, she was just sweet. And when you spoke to her, you really had to be sort of like, I'm going to call her Mary. That's not her name. But it'd be sort of like, okay, Mary, like, let's take a second. Okay, we're good. How can I help? What can we do together to make this work? Like, you really had to sort of take that approach. And with him, it was much more like, okay, here's the numbers, here's the facts, here's whatever. But I couldn't have spoken to her that way. I'd have freaked her out. She'd have run to the hills. So it's also being able to recognize the language you need to use with the individual people that you're speaking to. So if you're in an open house and you've got one person that's more aggressive and more domineering, they're going to want you to respond, not to overpower them because they want to be in control, but to be firm and to be succinct and to be strong. And the other person who's more quiet or like more fun or is looking at the sparkly light, they're the ones that you're going to adapt that way to. So how your language is used, not just the words you use, but how and when you use it. When do you speed up and when do you not? One of the other huge pieces of language, and I know, again, this seems ironic coming from me, is knowing when to stop talking. There are lots of you who talk your way into a listing and then talk your way right back out of it. You talk your way into selling a house and you've convinced them that it's falling down by the time you leave the showing. Some people just need to stop talking, right? And again, I realize the irony of me saying this, but I'm actually pretty good at this. So a good example would be somebody asking you about your commission rate. This is one of the big ones where people talk way too much, right? This is what I charge. And this is what my value proposition is associated with what I charge, and you give your answer. And then you stop talking. And you wait. They will talk first. Okay? And if I was to say, I charge 5% commission, or I charge 5%, we share it fairly with the other side. I'd love to say it's 5 plus 2.5. That would be great. But no, it's 5, and this is X, Y, whatever, what we provide with that. And then you stop talking. But I'm saying it like, oh, this is just a fact. This is just is what it is. And then they go, oh, okay, and they move on. If you're going at it from a nervous place or a lack of confidence, that in your language is conveyed, okay? So the tonality of your voice, I wouldn't want to have that up lilt at the end of a powerful statement. A client asking you, like, so, like, what do you think? Like, should we offer? You don't want to go, yeah, I think we should. You want to be, yes, we have looked at 10 houses. We've done your wants and needs analysis. This is the house. Are you redecorating it in your house, in your mind? Are you placing your furniture? Are you going to lose sleep if somebody else gets this house from you? If we don't offer and someone else's moving truck pulls up, how are you going to feel? So those statements do not have an up lilt at the end of my voice, but I'm also doing what in those types of statements? Tanya says, I'm helping them make up their mind. What I'm trying to do is empower them with the correct questions to ask. Okay? I want to direct their thoughts to be very specific. So that is a form of closing. It's the same idea as if you're working with a listing and you get an offer in and they're starting to nickel and dime over $500. And we say, okay, so how are we going to feel if we have to go back on the market and have 10 more showings and the house that you love that's down the street that just actually came on the market is gone? Are we going to care about $500? So I'm saying $500 down. My voice is down. So I'm trying to direct them to their why. When you are through the forms of questions that you ask in your listing and your buyer consult, getting to the why and the really big things that somebody wants as a buyer or a seller, then you have the ability to continually bring that focus back to them. And that comes back to asking questions about, why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? Asking questions that you think might be important, but maybe other people in your industry don't think are important. So I'll give you an example as a way to distinguish yourself. So if we're working with buyers, one of the conversations that we ask, especially with first-time buyers, is where do your friends live? And they might go, why? So let's say they work in Halifax, they're living in an apartment in Clayton Park, all their friends are military, let's say, and they all live in Spryfield or Timberley or Clayton Park, and now they're looking at a house in Mineville. Will their friends visit them? No. Will they be lonely on a Saturday night? Yes. Like, are they going to be unhappy? Yes. It's like they're going to answer these questions. You know, do we have anybody, oh, we're looking at a house and it's on a giant hill, the driveway's on a 60-degree angle. Okay, do we have anybody in your family with any mobility issues? Do your grandparents visit? Are they going to be able to get out of their car? And is the door going to slam shut with the weight of the angle of the driveway and smush your poor grandmother inside the front seat of her car? Can they get up the steps? You know, it's a 100-foot driveway and your spouse travels for work, so, and they have an infant. So who's shoveling? Where's the baby? Oh, I'll shovel. Where's the baby? Inside for 2 hours by itself? Is that going to work? Like, you're asking these questions and they go, oh my gosh, right? So, but you're asking specific, firm, authoritative questions that are steering the client to what they really want. And that is connected with language. It's connected with tonality. Marc-Andre has a question. Hold on.
And what is important is the way you look at the person also.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Sorry.
That's okay. So these are all forms of closing. And I realize that this is not typically what you're taught. Everyone's talking about, you know, ask for the business. At the end of your speech, go, so, you know, would you like to sign up with me? And that's the close. I disagree. I think if you're closing all the way through, then the signing is sort of like an automatic. I'm not saying you don't ask for the business. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But I think that if that is your only closing, you have a problem in terms of your success ratio. I think you're going to do a lot more appointments than you need to do versus being continually going through it together. So we talked about language, we talked about speed, we talked about use of words, we've talked about tonality. The other thing we have to talk about is, before we switch to another piece, is speaking with confidence. You have to know whatever it is that you know. And what you don't know, you need to confidently say, I have no idea. Anybody that's ever worked with me or been on an appointment with me has heard me say to clients, that is a great question. I have absolutely no idea, but I will find out. Do not worry if you do not know the answer. Now, if you're doing an open house and you don't know what houses are for sale on the street, okay, that one you should know. But if you don't know what something sold for 6 months ago off the top of your head, I don't know. It's not relevant to me. Unless someone's asking me at that moment, I'll go look it up. I can get you the answer. You know, what's the rules in this park about whatever? What are they building down the street? You know what you know. If you don't know, they would rather hear you say, I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so leave it with me. Can I have your name and phone number, and I will get you the answer? Right? It's okay to not know everything. People are tired of people making stuff up that sounds like foolishness, right? They're going to respect you a lot more, in my opinion, of course, this is all my opinion, that by just saying, you know what, I have no idea. That's a great question. Right? Let me find out. Right? Or I'm pretty sure it's this, but you know what, you've raised a really interesting point that I hadn't considered. You know what, let me do a little homework on that. How can I get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? They give you a phone number. Are you textable at this number? Are you reachable during the day? Oh no, this is my cell phone. I'm in a secure place at work. You can only reach me in the evening. Okay, great, perfect. So I'm going to get those answers, and I'm going to touch base with you tomorrow. Oh, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock work for you? Great. Okay, perfect. So 7 o'clock tomorrow, I'll get back to you with those answers. So that's the other piece of it. So we're going to talk about, you know, when you're offering appointment times, for example, in our language. Okay, this is going to sound condescending, and it's not my intention, but anybody who has children or has been in a grocery store with children, and you get to the cereal aisle. Every parent's nightmare is the cereal aisle because everything is pretty and sparkly and looks so yummy and delicious. And you are basically offering them Cheerios or Special K, and they want X. So you need to offer them the two boxes. Which of these two boxes would you like? So do evenings or weekends work best for you? Oh, well, we work during the day, so probably evenings. Okay, great. Okay, so is there a night during the week that you're not available? Well, Wednesday nights we have hockey. Okay, great. So how's Tuesday this week or Thursday next week? Say 7, that way you have time for supper? Oh, yeah, okay, Tuesday night's perfect. Like I'm not asking them to pick a date. I'm steering them towards the date. Okay, perfect. So let me just grab my phone. Let's put that in the calendar right now. What's your address? What's your email? What's your phone number? Okay, perfect. I will touch base with you the day before. I'll have all those answers. We'll come. We'll sit down. We will figure out what is the best solution for you. Do you hear what I'm doing? Everybody hear what I'm doing? Okay. So the other big piece of this is what you do know, you say with confidence. And even if what you're saying with confidence is that you have no idea, you're still saying it with confidence because people respect that. Okay, so that's where that tonality of your voice, the speed, all of that is a big player in how you're conveying that confidence. Extremely important in all of this is your body language. And I apologize that for people on the line, you can't see whatever I'm doing. And of course, if I don't talk with my hands, I don't think I can talk. I'm actually messing up my Fitbit numbers because I taught a class last week for 3 hours at the board, and it told me that I did 12,000 steps while I was taking my class, and I'm very sure that I did not take 12,000 steps while teaching a class. I'm pretty sure it was my hand talking that that reflected X amount of moves. So I'm not saying use your hands, don't use your hands, that doesn't matter. When we're talking about body language, so again, your body language needs to adapt to the situation. But no matter what situation you're in, I'm going to argue that aggressive body language is never appropriate, that it is never a situation that we are in or need to be in. So someone comes into an open house, you know, you want to respect that sort of like, I don't know, 36 inches to 40 inches, 3 feet type thing between you and the person you're talking to. A minimum arm's length, in terms of distance. Do not be a close talker for anybody that's watched Seinfeld. That's wrong. One of the ways to be really comfortable and show confidence when you're standing is to stand with your hands behind your back. It's sort of like depending what you're doing, like you might have them there, or you might have your hands just sort of like my hands are always in front of me because I'm always using them to talk. But maybe you might be sort of like one foot crossed over the other, like you're sort of relaxed but confident. You're not fidgeting. For men who are in any open house situation, please absolutely make sure your pockets are empty before you go to an open house. Men unconsciously jingle change and keys in their pocket, and it's extremely distracting, and it gives a sense of lack of confidence. For women, if you're wearing scarves or anything else like that, do not have anything, don't fidget, with anything that's, hanging or jewelry or whatever, just let it be, or don't wear it if you can't stop doing it because it's an unconscious thing that conveys a tell that you are actually not comfortable. If you're sitting, I'm of the opinion that when you're engaging with the person, that you are sort of like leaning slightly over the table, but not, again, not in their immediate space, but you still have a very relaxed body posture versus a tense, like aggressive sitting position. It's hard to sort of demonstrate. When you're giving advice, one of the things that has worked extremely well for me, and I know Chelsea's seen me again do this lots of times, is if we're having a sort of a long conversation about something, then I will often, like, we might go through the numbers together and we're sitting at the table and we're looking at the piece of paper. So obviously I'm leaning sort of over the table because we're working on paper. But then when we start to discuss, typically what I do, and I do it automatically now, I had to learn how to do it, is I actually sit back in my seat. I'm typically turned a little bit to one side towards the people that I'm looking at. I will typically cross my legs and I will have my hands sort of on my lap or up in the air, of course, because I'm talking. But I'm sitting, leaning back in my chair, kind of like you would after dinner with your arm sort of up over the side of the chair, if that's possible. If not, you just have that sort of engage, like you're open. The relaxed body posture conveys an extreme amount of confidence because you're so comfortable and relaxed talking about this. And you might move in, lean forward from time to time based on the dialogue, or, oh my God, that's a great idea, or, oh, like, you know, whatever you're doing. But there's something very powerful about the confidence that's exuded when you can sit back and relax, because obviously you know what you're talking about. Does that make sense to everybody? So Marc-Andre brought up another really good point, which is eye contact. Okay, so whether you're in an open house, whether you're sitting in a buyer consult, whether you're sitting at a listing appointment, always looking at the person who is speaking to you at the time they are speaking to you. So if you are making notes, you want to be looking up, listening to them, and then saying, okay, just a second, let me write that down, versus looking down and writing while they're talking to you. You are going to lose the power of engagement if you are not making eye contact while you're making notes. Maybe you work on an iPad and, like, I can type and look up. I don't need to look at my keyboard, so maybe I'll do it that way. Or maybe, you know, but you constantly are looking up to make sure that when they're speaking, you're looking at their eyes and right at that center point of their face. There's that really powerful human connection that comes from that. And then when I'm responding back to the questions that they're asking or the things they're talking about, you are giving small affirmations. So let's say they're giving you a list of things that they've done to their home at a listing appointment. And they're saying, so, you know, we did the windows. Oh, that's great. You know, and so tell me, when did they go in? You know, so by asking further questions about the things they tell you, oh, wow, or I never thought of that, or, oh, you know, oh, that was a really good decision, or, you know what, I don't remember seeing that. Could we just get up and go look at that thing that you're telling me about? What they're seeing is that you are paying attention. And one of the biggest ways to close is to make sure that the client, in whatever situation, feels that you are genuinely listening to them. So sometimes you might repeat back to them some things that they have said to you. So, okay, before we go any further, let me just take a minute here. I want to make sure that I have your wants and needs right so far. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. So, okay, so we've talked about geography. We want to be here or there. Yep, okay, perfect. We've talked about style. Yep, perfect. We need X amount of bedrooms. But, oh, wait a minute. What about this? So what you're doing is you're reaffirming, and I'm closing by showing them that I'm listening. One of the number one complaints people talk about from the realtor, other than the fact that they haven't heard from them, is that they feel like they told them, I said I would never live in X place, or I never wanted a house with this because that doesn't work in my life, and they took me to 10 of those. Everybody's heard this story from this realtor who apparently did this. But again, if we're trying to close all the way through, proving to somebody that they really got what you were talking about, or what your concerns were, or I'm going to be homeless if I put my house on the market and I haven't bought one first, or I'm a new buyer and I I'm worried about the money, and you deal with the money up front. Whatever it is, by reaffirming that and showing them and asking those secondary levels of question, that is a form of closing. And I think what I really want you guys to get from today is the concept that the closing starts the minute you walk in the door. The closing starts the minute they greet you at the door at the open house. Are you ready? Are you professional? Are you friendly? Are you polite? Are you confident? All of those things start your closing. Are you talking over them? Are you, yes, Marc-Andre. Hold on.
I know in retail, we say we have 30 seconds to get a customer. It's the same thing in realtor.
Well, the power of the first impression is extremely strong, and we all know that. So, is it, are you on time? Do you open your car door and Tim Hortons cups fall out into the driveway of the client? There's all different things you're doing, and how you're dressed, etc. Like there's that's a whole other thing, and I don't want to specifically go there, but I think what we have to remember is that in so many real estate courses, we're taught that the closing is happening when you, please sign your contract, please sign your buyer designated, please sign this, please let me put my sign on your lawn. But I'm a believer that your closing is subtle and is continually happening throughout the process. Yes, Marc-Andre.
What I mean is,
Hold on. I don't want us to not hear what he has to say.
what I mean is when you show up, when you open the house and you see people, if you look at the floor, if you're talking like that, you have to be, I'm here.
Well, and the other thing too, that's really good point, Marc-Andre, is that we also want to make sure that we are genuine. You cannot close if you are fake. People can spot fake a mile away. So the purpose of this class is to talk about your skill sets and enhancing who you already are and the things that are about you that clients already love that maybe we're not conveying in a strong enough fashion. Okay? So instead of looking at the closing as being, again, this I'm going to talk for an hour, and I'm going to tell you how fabulous I am and how many awards I've won and how many houses I've sold, and they don't care. And then I'm going to ask you for business, and that's my close. My opinion is that we have to start closing from the beginning. There's more to the close. There's our language, there's our words, there's tonality, there's speed, there's mirroring, there's body language, and that all of these things are as powerful, and in my honest opinion, way more powerful than the sentence you're going to say at the end, when basically what you should be saying is, okay, perfect, so let's set up our next appointment so that I can come back and we'll do the numbers, or we'll bring the photographer, or we'll do whatever it is you're doing next. And they're like, okay, great, perfect, let's get our calendars. Like, that's where it should go, right? And if you're putting all of that power to have that happen on this one magical sentence, then you're not always going to win. The other part of it is the client is looking for the close. They're looking for that line. Okay? They're waiting for you to be the hard salesperson. And when you have worked with them all the way through the process and sort of climbed this escalator together, they're with you, and you don't need to do the hard, slimy sell. That sometimes is how it comes across. And that's not what our intention is. We're just trying to close the deal. But if you're working with them genuinely as you go through it, then they're with you, right? And if they say to you, you know what, this has been great. Yeah, we'll set up our second appointment to do the numbers. And, just so you know, we are interviewing, two other people. And, sometimes you'll hear that. So, how do you close when you're getting those types of objections? So a big piece of it is knowing the types of objections that a client, is going to give you and practicing them. So how do we do it with confidence? We do it by doing it over and over and over and over again. So as an example, if somebody says, oh my gosh, this was great, I really enjoyed it, blah, 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 you gave us lots of information, and but we just, we want to be honest, because that's what they always feel, they feel really guilty. We're going to be, interviewing two other people, and so my answer, now this is my choice, I choose to take this road, is to say, that's great. I absolutely think that's a phenomenal idea. We encourage you to meet with a couple of other people and get some ideas. So here's some, I'm just going to give you a couple of tips. So I would recommend that you ask them this, that, and the other question. And those are questions I know that they won't have ready and that we've answered and that we're going to look really fabulous. But we're going to say, regardless of what you choose, you know what, it's been a privilege to be here. We wish you all the best. And please know that if for some reason, of course, we'd rather be the listing agent, you do choose so-and-so, you know what, if for some reason that doesn't work out, we would always be happy to come back and meet with you again. So how you choose to leave it, the tonality you use, and how you handle that objection, because I'm not really making it an objection. I'm just saying, great, perfect. You know what? Absolutely, we encourage that. You know. So depending on what the objection is going to be how to answer that. So Tanya brought up something at the beginning where she was saying, you know, she feels like she doesn't know the answers to all the questions. But Tanya is a person who likes to be super ready and super prepared and wants to have the answer to every conceivable thing in her back pocket just in case they might answer it. Is this right, Tanya? She's like, Argh! So, and Tanya knows so much more than she thinks she knows, and that's a different conversation. But one of the things to realize is that you are never, ever going to know the answer to everything. You're just not. You're never going to be ready for every situation or every scenario, and if you wait to engage till you're ready, you will be a secret agent and no one will hire you because you'll never be ready. I've been doing this 13 years. I don't know how many units I've done in my life. I've never actually counted them. I have no idea. Done a lot. That's what I'm going to go with, a lot, right? And done a lot of inspections. Maybe I'll just put real estate, maybe a building inspector at this point, so I could spit code at you that I've listened to for 13 years. And so, you know, those are things that you learn over time. You know, why do I know this randomness about how many feet from this and how many amps for that? Because I've practiced it again and again and again. How can I answer a certain objection? Because I practiced it. Okay, so now I can say with confidence X, Y, or Z. But part of when we're closing is to remember that the closing is not the last line. The closing is words you use, the language you use, it's the tonality you use, it's your body language, it's your facial expressions, like it's the whole piece, right? But whatever you're doing and however you're conscious of this and however you're practicing, do not lose your personality. Do not try to be somebody you're not. Just be conscious of the words that are being used in your mind. You know, as an example, lots of agents when they start, when they meet with a buyer's agent or meet with buyers or they're doing a listing appointment, they'll ask the clients if they can record part of their meeting so that they can go back and listen to it to learn how to do things better. And then you can hear your own words. Or maybe you bring a partner with you, remembering your agency limitations on this, of course, please. That's my disclosure as your broker. But maybe you have someone else who goes with you, who shadows and who listens to you, and then who gives you constructive feedback after. Not to interfere in the appointment, not to jump in and save you, but to actually, you know, hear you and listen to you, right? There's something very powerful of that, or of that conversation, because you may not realize you use certain words. You may not realize you say certain things, or you do certain things, or you stand a certain way. And role play is great, but it's not fully natural. So it's sort of a balance of the two skills of doing the two things together. But phone calls are a great way to role play because your language you use on your phone is just as important as the language you use in person. One trick that I will give you for being on the phone, and then I was going to tell you my tips for how to create conversation, is to put a mirror in front of yourself when you're on the phone, when you're learning how to do this, because the energy that you convey on the phone, have you ever gotten off the phone with someone and gone, wow, they're having a bad day, right? They sounded like they were racing. When you have a mirror in front of you, you will smile at yourself. Or if you're scowling, you'll know. You also don't fidget as much, and you don't shuffle papers and fiddle and type and do all kinds of other things. You actually just pay attention. Another suggestion for being on the phone, and I know this sounds weird, a lot of you have heard me say it before, but when you're working, whether you're working from home or not, is you should be dressed for work. When you're in your pajama bottoms and a hoodie, you're not as professional on the phone as you are when you're dressed up or have dress pants on or whatever it is you wear to work, a shirt. Oh, no worries, Carol. We're recording. You know, that's a simple thing. Having the mirror in front of you, you won't scowl at yourself, and that will have a different impact on what your sales call is and how professional it is. Some people stand when they talk on the phone because they're more engaged. Some people actually stand at a podium. They have like a thing on their desk that they stand and do calls with. Everybody has different ways to do it. There's all kinds of different techniques that you can use, but ultimately there is definitely a difference in the conversation you have when you're, you know, dedicated and have your desk ready and your stuff ready and you have a mirror and you're dressed for work. You are definitely a professional at that moment, and it is definitely conveyed in your telephone call. So the last thing I was going to do is just have a quick chat with you on some of the keys that you can use to create that dialogue with people, particularly at open houses, when you're encountering people for the first time, or maybe it's a sign call and you've got someone you're showing one of your listings to that you have no existing relationship with and they're basically a stranger. It's sort of the equivalent of the listing side of an open house. So it's really simple, and it's just sort of like a checklist in your head. It's, you know, where do you live now? Where do you work? What do you do? Do you have children? What do you do for hobbies? Like, where was your last vacation? If you sort of go through these sort of keys in sort of it's the natural flow of conversation, right? So someone is coming to look at one of your listings on a sign call, and they come in and they're, I don't know, buddy's wearing work clothes, and you're like, oh, like, you know, so like, what do you do? Like, you know, so people love to talk about themselves. So they'll tell you what they do. And then, you know, she's there and you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like, you know, oh, I know someone. Like, you'll find something about something that they said that you can engage with. And then what does she do, or what does he do? And I'm, you know, whatever the dynamic is of the room. And they're going to tell you that. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's great. So like, whereabouts are you guys now? Oh, well, we live over in, we're in an apartment, and like, blah, 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 blah. They're going to tell you. Okay. And then, you know, oh, look, that's a great building. I can't remember. Do they have pets there in that building? Oh no, we can't have a dog. You know, as soon as we get a house, we're going to get a dog. And, you know, so, you know, and then you'll kind of get a feel as to whether kids are an appropriate question, right? If they're 60, you may not care if they have kids. If they're 20, you might want to know, you know, so, you know, and sometimes you'll say, so I know this might sound like a weird question, but are schools a factor? Or, you know, and so that's another way to ask about kids without it sounding inappropriate. And so you kind of go through those categories one by one, and what ends up happening is you have this naturally organic conversation with these people that's engaging, remembering our tonality and our you know, our body language and our voice and all of those things we've already talked about, okay? But that is also a part of how you're closing, because when you're properly engaged and creating that connection with that consumer, in a way you're creating that bond that ultimately leads to a closing, okay? So that's what I've got for you. Does anybody have any questions or anything that I haven't talked about that they want me to try and answer? And remember, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know. Nobody online? We're all good? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. If you guys have any questions here, are we good? We're good. Thanks, guys. We did actually record this, which I don't normally remember to do. So Aaron will have it available for anybody that wants it later. And thank you for coming and participating.